Huh?
You're listening to Cryptid Clues, featuring your hosts, Taylor Field and Reuben Olson.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Taylor Field,
And I'm Reuben Olson.
and we are here for our first official episode of Cryptid Clues.
Yes, we are. Oh, I'm so excited, man.
I'm very, very excited. We got a special topic, like we hinted at in our prologue episode. Be sure to go check that back on the feed. We're going to be covering...
Ogopogo.
Yes, but before we do that, just a quick little bit of housekeeping. Be sure to check us out at CryptidClues.ca. And if you have any questions or want to reach out to us, send us an email at CryptidClues@gmail.com. And make sure you check out our blog on our website, because every episode that we do following the cryptid case file that we dive into, we'll have a blog that we put up, and basically you can read some more information that we may cover or may have missed, and just get a little bit more insights onto the topic.
Definitely reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're in the Okanagan area, we'd love to hear from you even more, because that's where we are. Ogopogo is our friendly little neighbor here.
This is true. And to kick us off into the Ogopogo,
I believe we're going to talk about Okanagan Lake.
yes, a little bit of history for you fine folks out there.
Ogopogo's home.
Yes, indeed. So, Okanagan Lake formed approximately 10,000 years ago. And if you're wondering why I'm reading this so well, it's because I am reading it off of something. 10,000 years ago, when part of the Fraser Glacier that covered the Okanagan Valley formed an ice dam near Okanagan Falls as it melted, causing a large, deep lake to form known as Glacial Lake Penticton, aka Okanagan Lake. Lake Penticton was another 100 meters higher than what it is today. The glacier melted down into the lakes we have today in the Okanagan.
Ooh, that's very icy. Do you think Scrat's down there with a little nut?
Yeah. A fun fact, we were just, me and Master were watching Ice Age the other day, and you feel for that squirrel. You really do.
That was my favorite character as a kid.
Oh, the shenanigans he gets into. Yeah, so with this glacier melting, like 10,000 years ago, that is a long time. And again, you have, side note, you have species that could be frozen in the ice, frozen in the glacier, then it starts to thaw out, and you could have some kind of species or bacteria coming out of there. And it's just interesting to think like what that glacier kind of segues to. What are your thoughts on the land at that time?
I love that it's technically called a fjord. It's a Norwegian name, and I am mostly Norwegian.
Oh, there you go.
Ooh, I'm connected to Ogopogo now. Yeah, I mean, I definitely have different beliefs because I'm a religious person. If there was ocean over there at one point, or any kind of a flood or anything that happened, anything could be in the area. And if a lake forms even just from some ice melting, if there is any kind of connection that we don't know about, who knows what's there?
Absolutely. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing this right. The Syilx people. The Syilx. Is that how it's pronounced?
Syilx.
I apologize.
Like almost a German sounding. And
Syilx.
Syilx. I tried looking it up. I might be butchering it too, but hopefully I'm a little bit closer than you.
I apologize. I'm not the greatest at pronunciation, but the people of that origin, they lived there for 12,000 years. So they were there, I mean, well before, when the lake approximately formed 10,000 years ago, which I think is crazy because the things that they would have seen and witnessed. And again, this is where the origin came from, the stories.
Dinosaurs. So it was the Syilx and the Shuswap people, I believe, right?
Yes.
Were there the two?
Yes, yeah.
Now, forgive me, I don't know too terribly much about the First Nations initial settling here. I'm not sure if the Shuswap and the Syilx are kind of together, or if they were separate.
I'm not sure, but they do share a common cryptid, which is something that we'll probably note later on when we talk about more cryptids, because they have their Shuswap lake monster as well. The Shuswagi, I believe, is its name. Settlers. Now, they arrived in 1809. Now, again, they just come into the picture, and you've got these people that have been here for thousands of years, and they have these stories. And I just think like it's just baffling. Just like you arrive on this land, and you're told these stories at a time when, okay, you don't think, I don't want to say like in a common sense these days where it's like, oh yeah, that's out in the woods. Yeah, right. I don't believe you. These people back then, they would have believed it, which I think is terrifying.
Yes, definitely different cultural. There's the beliefs for one part, because they refer to Ogopogo as the. I'm going to try to pronounce this right. I can't do it. Hold on. It's really hard to do, and I want to practice it.
Let's see. I am very curious.
You've probably seen the spelling online there, Taylor, but Inahahi is kind of what I've got written down. I was listening to somebody pronounce it for the longest time. That was about 6 hours ago that I looked up the pronunciation, and I had it down pat. And now I'm really butchering.
Is it Nahayik?
Yeah, Inahai.
What I said.
Ogopogo.
Ogopogo, yes.
I really want to practice that, because one of the things I love doing is respecting the original names of a lot of these creatures.
Absolutely.
And the people that named them. You know, that's, I guess maybe because I'm a bit of a grammar person. Maybe that's why I tend to focus on that. Anyways, carrying on.
Well, I think what you say there about paying respect to the origin and the name, I think that's very valuable, because the idea of Okanagan Lake and the kind of history and the lore surrounding it was definitely influenced and changed by settlers that showed up.
Absolutely. Because the First Nations people would give offerings to the lake spirit. That's what the original name for Ogopogo, the one that I have trouble pronouncing right now, it was Sacred One of the Water is a rough translation, I believe. They would give offerings to it and then safely cross Okanagan Lake. But it wasn't just a lake spirit. It was like a spirit of the area, really. But they definitely had a lot of encounters with it in the Okanagan Lake.
Yeah. I trying to look more into this. I couldn't find many accounts from the people that basically lived in this area for such a long time, like their history. It just seems more like their belief was cemented in what you said, their offerings, and just this mutual relationship between this spirit and this legend and the lake itself, as opposed to settlers' accounts and stuff like that.
And the settlers corrupted it so much too, because I mean, the European settlers that arrived really interpreted their sightings as them offering literal hunks of meat to feed a hungry beast that was going to attack them, which wasn't necessarily the case. Plus, right away after that, once the settlers settled, it turned into tourism. So Ogopogo was a big attractant for tourists.
Yes. I think, again, I feel like that's an unfortunate side of it is the tourism, because, again, I love Okanagan Lake. It's beautiful, but it's become such a tourist hotspot that, I mean, if the chance that there is something really there and it's basically just a stuffed toy you can buy at the downtown store, it's just been commercialized, unfortunately, like Santa Claus.
Well, I mean, so has Bigfoot at this point.
Yeah, that's very true. Do you have any other information on the lake history itself?
No, I actually have zero history on the lake itself, Taylor. That's all you.
I wanted to pinpoint then I don't know if the word would be diameter or basically like the measurements of the lake. And
sure, we're not math people.
No, I'm clearly not. The lake itself, 84 miles long. This is a lake that ranges all the way from Penticton right back up to Vernon. This is massive, massive. When you go on Google Maps and you look at the Okanagan, it's this big blue spot splashed right on the map. It's crazy.
It is huge.
Now, the depth, and this is what really gets me, it is 232 meters deep. Now, if we, as I said in my notes prior, if we go back a few thousand years ago, it's 100 meters higher. So it would have been 332 meters deep back then. But now it's 232 meters, which is equivalent to 761 feet deep.
That is huge.
That is very huge. So, again, I think that leaves a lot of question or potential, what would be the word? Potential intrigue into the fact that, is there underground cave systems?
Yeah, that's definitely something we can explore later. I would never want to explore any underground cave systems. I would be too terrified.
Yeah.
I totally made Taylor stumble there. I'm sorry, folks. He was holding the mic a little close, and I was watching the audio hit the red. So I was trying to be subtle and like gesture him to move it backwards, but then he kind of stared at me too long and was like, "What are you trying to say, Reuben?"
I got scared. I was holding the microphone close. I reached out to touch Reuben's hand. I was getting nervous here.
I know, it's nice actually being able to sit in the same room right now and make this podcast.
It really is nice. Yeah. I also want to note the lake is 3.1 miles wide. And I'm assuming that's at its widest point because it does have some narrow points. But that is massive.
It is. It's definitely big enough to harbor some kind of serpentine dinosaur-like creature. Why we don't see it very often is definitely questionable, which leads me to believe that maybe if something was there, it's not anymore. But we still get reports quite often. So who knows?
Well, yeah, we did have one near the end of 2020, I believe.
And there was a big one in 2018, I believe.
In 2018. I'm inclined to say I agree with you. Whether or not there was something there at one point, I think there was, but I do think there's a high chance that it's died out or just not existent. And whether that be natural causes or it was exterminated, I couldn't say.
Moving on through some of the history of our little Ogopogo friend here. Interesting thing to note, in the 1980s, the insurance company Lloyd's of London issued a $1 million bounty for the capture of Ogopogo. Now, they initially suggested that they need photographic proof of the monster, but they later enforced that physical evidence was needed to claim the money. A lot of people went crazy. They were fishing for Ogopogo. It was nuts. The tourism was huge, especially their very lovely, friendly picture of Ogopogo on the newspaper clipping itself. That was really when I think the craze took a big boost, you know, like Ogopogo is now like an icon of the Okanagan Valley. It was before that as well, but after that, it was publicized so much on TV that everybody kind of thinks of Ogopogo now when they come here.
Well, I mean, it's even the mascot of our hockey team, the Kelowna Rockets. Yeah.
And then Japanese researchers, I think this was around 2018 as well, used submersible radar equipment to search for the creature.
Interesting.
To no avail. They weren't able to find it, but I think you've got some points about there being a spot in the Okanagan Lake that's like no one knows the depth of it, really.
Well, I wouldn't say that I have any information on. They don't know exactly the depth. But could I say exactly where it's been mapped out to be like 761 feet deep? I don't know where the lowest point is in the lake. I assume it's wherever you swim, it gets colder. That's probably the deepest part.
Wherever you look down and it's the darkest.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how they map it. I would imagine radar and LiDAR and stuff is pretty standard now. You should be able to see the bottom. I'd love to actually look into that and see if there's any holes in there somewhere.
Holes as in like tunnels, or holes in just the way they're scanning the terrain?
Yeah, something like that. Because maybe there is some kind of connection to an underground system or caves or something like that. Because there's always been talks about that in the myths. That Ogopogo like lives in the caves or something down below the Okanagan Lake.
That's growing up. That's how I understood it. I took it as, okay, yeah, the nearby lakes are all connected through subterranean passageways.
Do we have any other history points left here, Taylor?
As far as that goes, I do have one interesting history fact, but before we get to that, I'm going to jump to a quick ad break here, and then we'll get back into some history. And we're back. So, the first settler's account of the Ogopogo was by a woman called Susan Allisons in 1872, which I think is very intriguing because, again, settlers arrived in 1809, so you have a good half a century pretty much goes by without anyone really seeing it, or maybe people did and they didn't voice their sighting, but that's the first concrete one, the earliest one I could find, at least.
Probably the first widely reported one, I would say.
Yeah,
because you'd have like the newspaper companies really pushing it out there as a story at that point.
Absolutely. Again, this is a time when pioneers and settlers demonize the concept of Ogopogo, like you were talking about earlier, seeing the natives' offerings to the lake as sacrifices to keep a beast kind of to its own area. I see it as, it's just, again, we touched upon earlier, I see it as offerings. It's a respect with nature and the spirit and your surroundings. But as far as history things go, I believe that's all I have. Oh, there was another mass sighting. I believe a bunch of people were parked alongside Okanagan Lake. Did you find out about that?
I heard of that one. A whole bunch of people witnessed it. I think it was like 30?
I believe
30
so.
people, or
around 30
cars?
people. It was at least over 10 cars. I'll say that. And I believe it was around 30 people.
Okay. That's a lot. Now, what they witnessed altogether, is it one of those things where you look up a video of Ogopogo, and almost every single video you look at is a bunch of waves. Maybe something's there. You can't really tell. I honestly don't see a serpentine creature just kind of chilling on the surface of the water for that long in those videos. You'd think there'd be more movement, a little more excitement, but it does just look like waves moving very slowly. I don't know why it would do that. Do you think they witnessed something like that? Or do you think they saw like a real live creature? If
they saw a real live creature, I feel like the story's been hidden by history at this point, but I feel like it would have had a little bit more weight to it. I think the one thing that people freak out about is these sightings. It's usually consisting of definitely a wave ripple across the surface of the water, but it's going against the regular flow of the waves. And I think that's what really catches your attention at first. And then some people say they do see like a shimmer, or I guess an actual body of something.
Yeah. If you go back to some of like the Unsolved Mysteries episodes where they talk about Ogopogo, you've got a lot of elderly witnesses, but even a couple of them are people who live like here in Kelowna and stuff, and say things like, oh, it has like a big dinosaur head. We saw it, like its head was out of the water, had a long neck, and then it moved along and then dove back in. So there's definitely reports where people have seen something real, but those ones are the ones that don't have any kind of photographic or video evidence.
Yeah.
Especially from the time frame too. It would be hard to just whip out like a big old camera, and why would you have that with you?
Exactly. It wouldn't be justified as to why, unless you're specifically Ogopogo hunting at the time. But yeah, I do think it's interesting how their reports are of detailing the creature.
Can you imagine if Ogopogo was as popular as, say, Sasquatch is, and you had, instead of finding Bigfoot, there was like finding Ogopogo or finding lake monsters?
Well, I mean, our equivalent to that would probably be like, I know there's no Finding Nessie out there, but there's many shows oriented around that.
Yeah.
So I feel like we could watch that and pretend it's Ogopogo. I mean,
I want like my Bobo to be out there doing Ogopogo calls in the water. Little gurgly noises.
Yeah.
That would be so great.
I had no idea that there was a research team that actually mapped out and scanned looking for Ogopogo. I had no idea, but when I've looked into these shows trying to find more information, because these seasons cover many different cryptids in each episode, a lot of these shows, I've never seen them actually cover Okanagan Lake. It's usually Lake Erie, like the more signature, I guess you could say, because I feel like Ogopogo is kind of at the bottom of the scale.
All the ones I could find really focus on either a whole bunch of lake monsters for one episode, so like Ogopogo gets like a passing mention or 1 or 2 minutes just about him, or you have Unsolved Mysteries where they actually do have those 10-minute segments pertaining to a certain like cryptid or something for their occasional creepy episode.
Absolutely. So In terms of, and this is kind of touching upon something that you already mentioned before about its existence, do you feel like there's like an intelligence to it? If it is just coming up to the surface of the water just to skim along for a brief little bit, is it to get air? Is it because it's thinking of doing something? Or
I don't think we know enough about it, honestly. My first thought would be some kind of a dinosaur. We'll get into that later.
Yes.
Now, were they intelligent? Probably not, since they're all dead. At least as far as we know.
Yeah.
Now, if it was something spiritual, then there probably is an intelligence to it.
Absolutely.
Now, I think maybe we should move on to some of the fun topics. This could be our segue into what is Ogopogo.
Yeah,
since
let's
that's
do
what
it.
we're already talking about.
Absolutely.
So, what is Ogopogo? Let's start with the lamest one. Sturgeon. We do not know if there are any sturgeon in Okanagan Lake. Actually, I believe there's a reward if you fish up a sturgeon. You should be letting some authorities know, because people want to know if the sturgeon are breeding in there. The largest sturgeon on record. Can you take a guess, Taylor?
Am I guessing length or pounds?
Both.
I'm going to say 7 feet long.
You think that could be mistaken for an Ogopogo?
If you have 3 7-foot long sturgeons moving in a line.
If you have 3 of them moving in a line.
3,
So
yes.
you're not quite 6 feet. So a sturgeon could be a little longer than you think.
Oh, God, that would scare the bejesus out of me.
That would, wouldn't it? How about what the record actually is?
Oh, boy.
20 feet.
Are you serious?
20 feet.
A 20-foot long
can
sturgeon.
Be huge. Multiple people long.
Gosh.
And 310 pounds.
Oh, my gosh.
Right? That's massive. This is like shark-sized.
Yeah.
Now, if there are huge sturgeon somewhere in Okanagan Lake, it would only take one of them for someone to mistake it for Ogopogo.
Exactly.
And have you seen their heads? They have funky looking heads for a fish that almost is horse-like. It even comes to like the little flat point with the snout.
Interesting note on the sturgeon. Not too long ago, I believe it was Lake Erie, because I believe they are residents of up there. A woman was attacked by one. She was pulled into the water
By a sturgeon.
by a sturgeon.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah.
Was she trying to catch them like country style?
I think she was just standing waist deep and this thing came at her.
Oh,
So I'm not sure what she was trying to do, but she's fine. She survived. But
no, that's good. I'm
Yeah.
glad she survived.
So-
Otherwise, if she disappeared, it'd be pretty fishy.
yes, it would be.
So now river otters. Did you know Okanagan Lake has otters?
Are you going to tell me there's 25-foot long river otters now?
No, but think about this. So we occasionally see river otters in Okanagan Lake. They're very, very rare. They don't necessarily inhabit the lake. They inhabit the area around the Okanagan Valley, and sometimes they do come down to Okanagan Lake and take a bath. Maybe even Cow Lake at this point, because Cow Lake is right next to Okanagan Lake. I wasn't able to find any pictures or proof of them there, but there's lots of pictures and video evidence of river otters swimming around Okanagan Lake. Do you know how they swim?
No, I don't.
They swim in vertical waves. So a river otter will dive in head first like a swimmer and go up and down and up and down.
Really?
And if they're in groups, they'll even follow each other. And they'll do this kind of a movement through the water. Now,
Really?
I'm making a movement in the room here that unfortunately our guests can't see. But when I say vertical waves,
He's flopping
Kinda
his
like-
body on the floor to show.
like a sped up caterpillar inching along a tree branch, but through the surface of the water. Now, video-wise, I couldn't find any river otters actually following each other in a straight line. I've only read about it. I would assume that's true.
Would that be enough force to, let's say, create a rogue wave to catch people's attention? Or
Maybe not necessarily, but one of the videos of Ogopogo was debunked as being possibly a beaver or a river otter, because they were able to go to that location and measure the distance from the filmer to the water. And originally in the video, it looks like it's like a good 60 feet away, when in reality it was 15 feet.
really?
And it was really tiny. So it puts the perspective into play here.
I see. River otter. I'm gonna have to look up an image of that because I've
Oh, they look like normal otters.
really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
They're so cute. And probably violent and want to bite your face off, but they're so cute. I want one as a pet. Now let's get into some of the more fun things. So, dinosaur. I think you have some notes on those.
I do. And before we get into that juicy dinosaur content, we're going to go to our next ad break. So stay tuned. And we're back.
Wow. That was a lot of ads all of a sudden.
That was so quick. So you want me to start off with my dinosaur information I have?
Go ahead.
Okay.
I only wrote down like 2 notes on them. So you can go right ahead, Taylor.
Yes. So it's interesting because I think most scientists believe, should such a creature exist or have existed, that it was a Basilosaurus, which is essentially a prehistoric whale during the Cenozoic era 35 million years ago.
And it's interesting to note that Basilosaurus is merely the genus of the whale species, not an exact like, oh, it's a blue whale. No, it's like, well, you could classify a sperm whale and a blue whale and all those other whales by their scientific name. That's what the Basilosaurus refers to. So it could have been any kind of Basilosaurus.
Mm-hmm. And the miscellaneous stock Basilosaurus image that I had pulled is just this. It's crazy to see how long and like
yuck
evolved it is, I guess. Yes, I know Reuben's not a fan.
I hate whales, and to think that there could be one in Okanagan Lake terrifies me. I'm never going swimming there. Never.
Some other dinosaurs that lived in British Columbia, I thought it was very interesting. So there are theropods, ankylosaurs, hadrosaurs, ancient turtles, ancient crocodiles, and then many fish and freshwater rays, which I thought were very intriguing. The Pherosaurus, which is a smaller cousin to the Triceratops, but it essentially lacked horns, resided here. And then specifically an elasmosaur, which again has me really excited because to know that those things existed in this area around 90 to 70 million years ago, bones of them have even been discovered on Vancouver Island, which again is very interesting.
And just think how close we are to the coast here too. Like there's all this ocean right next to us. So ocean dinos are a big possibility as well.
And it's interesting because I remember reading an article about the discussion of dinosaur bones in BC. Like we're not swimming in dinosaur bones here, but the area was, I mean, prime for it. Essentially, you go back 50 million years ago, there were many volcanoes that were popping off, but the land was still very ripe, I guess you could say. I mean, look at I think one of the most famous volcanoes in the Okanagan is Mount Boucherie. They built a winery on top of it.
That's some hot wine.
Yeah.
I actually find that very interesting too, to think about like the plesiosaur and other creatures like that. They're really freaky too. I don't like whales. I don't like big things in the ocean. I'm fine with sharks. I think we talked about this on our prologue a little bit. But plesiosaur, no thank you. That's still scary. Where was I going to go with that? So on like the flood side of it or the ocean side of it, if something was to swim into the valley as like ice is melting or anything like that, yeah, we could have tons of dinosaurs out here. We wouldn't know. We've even got other dinosaurs as cryptids now. That there's like the Makellian Bombay, which is just straight up a long-necked dinosaur. If that's still kicking around, I think something in a lake or an ocean is much more likely to be alive still today.
Well, you referenced Ice Age early on, and I think specifically Ice Age 2, The Meltdown, is a very good kind of comparison in this scenario because you have the inside dry land, you could say, let's say the Okanagan, and then the outside you have ice melting and a whole body of water. And then sure enough, what happens is the ice starts to melt and the water is flowing in. You have two creatures, again, for the story purpose, frozen in ice, but they thaw out and they start swimming inland. And let's say tectonic plate activity and nature to be traps something in a certain area.
Yeah, and like even plesiosaur and things like that, they don't necessarily need to be in the water 100% of the time. They could scurry along land a little bit. They got some pretty big, powerful flipper legs.
Oh yes.
Or other species inside the plesiosaur genus, you know? Now, Basilosaurus, I'm not sure about that one, but it could still arrive just as well. One interesting note I wanted to bring up on the dinosaur topic, though, is some of the reports for Ogopogo describe it as a serpent with the head of a horse or a sheep. Now, when we think of a plesiosaur, or any kind of dinosaur, we think of like a big lizard. We don't really know for sure if they look that way, though. That's just a interpretation, right? An artistic rendering based on its bones, and typically what kind of things wrap around those bones. If you take the skeleton of a cow and you give it to somebody that makes images of dinosaurs, they're probably not going to give you something that looks exactly like the cows we know today. So who's to say that maybe a plesiosaur of some kind doesn't have the head of a horse or sheep? Maybe it's even covered in some kind of weird fur, has some fun plates that aren't skeletal, maybe cartilage, and we don't have that as part of its skeleton.
Yeah.
Something could easily fit the description of Ogopogo, but actually have the skeleton of some kind of dinosaur, you know?
You make a very good point, and that's been the case with dinosaurs in this past century, to be honest, is they thought they were giant vicious lizards, then they learned that they share common similarities to birds, and then dinosaurs have feathers all of a sudden, which is terrifying. And you make a great point. These water dinosaurs could very well have different attributes and physical distinct features that are just totally devoid of anything that they show off in a museum, something that you wouldn't even be able to think of, like fur. I mean, gosh.
And it's 2021 and we're still discovering land animals, like the tree hyrax that was just discovered. It's like a big rat, but it's actually more related to elephants and stuff in Central Africa. That was just discovered. It's a new species.
And that was because it was howling or screaming.
Yeah, it was
right?
barking in the middle of the night.
Right.
And they had all these audio recordings of it, so let's go find it. And scientists jumped on that. Can they do that for Bigfoot, please?
Yeah, no
We
kidding.
have all these audio recordings of Bigfoot. Can we go find Bigfoot now? Clearly that rat's not as intelligent as Bigfoot. But okay, so if we can find a big rat, I'm pretty sure something like Ogopogo could be quite sneaky.
Yeah.
Right? Or maybe it has died out by now.
Depending how many there are, too. I mean,
it could just be an unknown serpent.
It could be. If there's only one, if you think about the size of Okanagan Lake, there's many different fish that reside there. So there's definitely a good food source. People aren't crazy throwing nets in the water, overfishing or anything in the lake. So you have a foundation of a ecosystem that can supply and support, I think, one, maybe two large Okopogos, these creatures, but I don't think there's any way that they could keep surviving.
Unless there's an underground connection.
Exactly. I mean, that could, let's say if there could be massive underwater chasms and huge, like the size of the Okanagan alone, massive underground areas just filled with water that could be resided in.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility as well. On the spiritual side of it, too, and this just throws all that other stuff out of the water. Well, if we go back to the First Nations reports and it's like a big spirit of the area, who's to say it isn't some kind of spiritual being or a demon or something that decided to take up residence and maybe decide to help some people in the area look for some worship or some thought, and then it just kind of stuck around and maybe took a few victims here and there. It would also account for all the other sightings in the area as well as being one thing.
Yeah.
If we were to dive into these other lake monsters in a future episode, I'm actually curious to see how different the reports are. Is it pretty much the same as Ogopogo, like the Shushwagi and all that stuff? Are they all the same monster-like creature, or do they have some kind of difference? Because if they're all the same one, then let's think about the possibility of maybe some kind of spiritual being just jumping around and covering almost all of the BC area, you know?
Well, I mean, from our little map that we're looking at, it's definitely not the scale by any means, but we have a sort of like a visual reference for, again, water cryptids, and it seems like the West Coast primarily has a good cluster of them.
Yeah. No, just looking at the map here with pictures, if you Google North American cryptids, the left side of North America, at least from our perspective, the left side, is just covered in lake monsters and some Bigfoot.
Yeah. It's baffling. It really is.
Which other ones are kicking around there? I think it's like what? Shushwagi, Turtle Lake Monster, Charlie.
There is the Bear Lake Monster, Tessie, Manipogo. I believe that's roughly everything on our side of the country.
And they're all very similar too.
Iliamna lake monster, but that's more Alaska. And yeah, if you go back out to the East Coast, then you have like monster of Lake Erie and a couple others. But I do find it interesting, and this is something I can't find any more information on it, and I don't know. The mystery surrounding it is crazy, and I've sent you the image of it, but that bone that was discovered back in the 1800s, pulled from Okanagan Lake, I think that is very crazy. Again, the fact that it went missing, and that I say it went missing because again, that's what I read in several articles, and I can't find any present information on it. It was in a museum, and then it is gone.
And it was a whale bone, correct?
Well, I couldn't even find any proper information from an examination. The primary, I guess, analysis and assumption is yes, it's a whale bone. And that being said, it could very well be a Basilosaurus bone.
Or, just being pulled out of the lake and someone goes, oh, that's most likely a whale bone. Maybe they can compare that to a plesiosaur and go, actually, yeah, that fits over here in the thigh somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who knows?
It's if you were to look up Okanagan Lake whale bone right now, Google it, you'll see the image with the date and just the image of the bone itself. It's no human bone. It's not.
Looks like a massive bone.
Yeah, it's come from something big. And is it fake? I don't believe it's fake one bit. I think it is 100% real. And I feel, again, it's one of those things that's just kind of tucked away because there's so much history that we don't know. Mm-hmm. And it's clouded.
And if there's one bone, maybe the rest are down there somewhere buried in the ground.
Buried, or they've already been plucked and stripped away.
The statue of Ogopogo that's at the bottom of Okanagan Lake.
Did you read through my fun facts?
No, I knew that already, actually.
My fun fact is ruined.
You were saving that to scare me, weren't you?
I was.
Actually, you and I talked about that once before, too.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
It was a long time ago. But imagine that's like the grave marker and there's bones under it.
That would be terrifying.
It's so sad, though, too.
And sad, but terrifying.
So I think this kind of brings us towards our last couple of fun topics here. How do you feel about swimming in Okanagan Lake now, Taylor?
Well, I mean, going out into the lake, I don't mind, and I love it right off the beach. I think it's fun just to dip in the water and then lay on the sand. It's very nice, very comfortable with a lot of other people around. Now, there are instances where me and Madison will go out in the boat and we'll be right in the middle of the lake and we just jump off and we're just floating, and there's a good few hundred feet below.
I can't do that. I can't. No.
I tell myself not to look down, even though it's pitch black.
I would tell you to look down. I'd be in the boat telling you to look down.
It can't be eerie. It can be terrifying because even though I don't know where I really stand on Ogopogo, in the back of my mind, there's just, what if something is below me? And if you dump your head under the water, you'll see fish. There's lots of fish swimming under you.
Yeah, not when I go fishing.
But you said you don't want to go swimming in the lake.
No.
You're done.
Nuh-uh.
Are you ever swimming again?
Oh, yeah, I'll go swimming again. But not in Okanagan Lake. Not in any of these lakes that might have a lake monster in it. Sorry. I nope out when it comes to deep water and scary things. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll swim in Cow Lake with my son. We'll go to the beach. Mm-hmm. We won't go very far, though.
You'll do the ocean, though, right?
No. You're not getting me in the ocean. Maybe like if it's like in a nice coral reef area, it's really pretty. There's lots of reef around you. It's really shallow. Mm-hmm. You have like a couple of patrol boats or something looking out for any whales. They can let the sharks through. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I might do it then. Now, what would it take for you to go diving in Okanagan Lake?
I wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't do it? Swimming in the deep green lake?
I've found it interesting to go scuba diving, and my dad I remember he had all the gear. He was super big on scuba diving and such, but me personally, I've read too many, not witness accounts, but I don't want to say victims either, experiences of things going wrong just in general with diving. And that frightens me. I'm not a very good swimmer already as it is. And so when I jump off in the middle of the lake, I got my life jacket on and I'm just bobbing up and down. To go down below scuba diving, I wouldn't feel comfortable.
Okay, put that aside. Now think of a shark tank. Would you go down in a cage in a big oxygen tank and just see how low you could go? You can't see.
Am I being paid for this?
I don't know. Are you?
So you're saying just see how low we can go. So you're dropping me 600 or 760. What is that?
That's probably too much pressure.
61
I'm
feet.
not going to put you in a situation where you're going to crumple up.
Gosh, it would get to the point where it would just be when it gets so dark that you can't see anything, and even when you look up and you can't even see the sun or the different shade of blue in the water above you from the light hitting it.
The green color.
Yeah, like that would be too terrifying. And again, who knows what is really down that deep in the lake? That is so deep. So I feel like, again, to go down there, it could be a giant sturgeon trying to get into my cage. I mean, it'd terrify me. I couldn't do it.
You would take one look at the sturgeon and instantly go, nope, that's Ogopogo. I'm out.
Ogopogo, yeah, 25 foot long sturgeon. Oh my God.
I would hate to be in that situation, and I would never do it. You couldn't pay me like $1 billion. I wouldn't do it.
$1 billion?
$1 billion.
Maybe $1 billion. I would
Maybe
probably,
$1 billion.
Yeah.
Can I have half?
I would give you half.
Oh, thanks. I don't have to do it now. So what do you think? Do you think the lake could be connected by like some kind of underground cave system to the other lakes?
I really do.
Yeah?
Yeah. Again, this whole area is just covered with lakes. You have Cal Lake, again, Shuswap Lake, Okanagan Lake, so many lakes, and they're all relatively close. And yeah, we know the water flows in from the mountains from lake to lake, overflow and such, but I honestly don't doubt there being underground passageways. I mean, we already have tons of underground passageways that are not filled with water. There's so many tunnels underground, which is terrifying enough. Like, I mean, several animals use them already, but just to think of that with water, I mean, it just makes sense. There's so many all around the world. There's so many channels that flow from pools of water to other bodies of water out into the ocean. I mean, it's incredible how even salmon can get all the way out here. You can see them literally down the street in a river at the right time of year, swimming in the river, and then they can find their way all the way back to the ocean. It is absolutely insane.
I definitely think there could be an underground connection like that. Can you imagine, though? You swim down to this underground cave system. What if it's not just like a few caves and tunnels? What if it's like a deep sea ecosystem? Like you're getting into deep sea creatures, like the neon glowing stuff. There could be huge things down there. You could maybe find like giant squid just kicking around underneath the continent. Like that's where maybe the dinosaurs are. What if this bleeds into some kind of crazier conspiracy theory like Hollow Earth? What if you swim down far enough, you pop your head out the other side? Holy crap. You like look up and it's welcome to Jurassic Park.
Yeah, Alan Grant's there. John Hammond's there. The
King
whole
Kong
crew
comes running by.
Yeah. Again, for anyone to say, Hollow Earth isn't real. I mean, I have the same people saying Hollow Earth is real. I mean, there's justification on both sides to certain degrees, and it's just, do people really know? Maybe there's a select few that really, really know, but I can't speak on behalf of that. I can only speak to what I know. What I know is I feel like there is a high chance that there are large chasms or large pockets under the earth that, as you said, can definitely be inhabited by creatures, especially underwater creatures. It could be giant squids just chilling down there. It could be several different things. It could be an ecosystem of species and creature that maybe travels into an area and an earthquake happens and it's contained in there. And again, that's something that they cover in that Piranha remake. As gross and kooky as that movie was, the basic foundation in the story was that you had an underground pocket where these prehistoric piranhas resided and they just ate and killed each other. And
I don't remember that. Was that like Piranha 3D?
That was Piranha 3D, yeah. So
wow, that's not what I watched that movie for. Clearly.
No. I know. You watch it for many other things. Not the actual story though. But the baseline of where the piranhas came from was this underground chasm basically sealed off from the rest of the world, and these piranhas are trapped in there. They fed on each other, and then another earthquake happens and it breaks open and they basically come out. And I think that's totally credible. again, there's caves and there's creatures trapped in caves all around the world, and they thrive down there. And sure enough, it's the same thing with underwater.
Now think about, let's dive even deeper into the conspiracy realm. Think about Skinwalker Ranch and all the like portals and stuff that show up. Do you think a portal could just open up in the lake, connected to some other alien lake somewhere else, and Ogopogo just swims through occasionally? Decides to collect some samples and return to Mars and then give it to the research team back there.
Well, that's very interesting, because then you're dealing with a very intelligent creature or species that is making the jump back and forth. And again, what is its purpose? Are you dealing with something that is like an intelligent Ogopogo that just pops in through its portal every now and again? But when it comes to our realm, it has to manifest as this creature.
The river otters like portaling in from Mars.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go fool these silly people again.
Trick them. I mean, it's a very interesting question, really, but I mean, that's hard for me to think on, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, the possibility is there. I do believe that if there are certain things that do come to our dimension, universe, whatever you want to call it, I think that maybe they are perhaps limited to how our way of things exists. You know, maybe they got to adhere to our dimensional barriers surrounding us and adhere to being a physical being of sorts. So it's a good question.
Wow, we're really dipping into the conspiracy now.
Oh, no, that's good.
That's what this is all about.
Yeah.
Let's get as crazy as we possibly can. I think we covered a lot about Ogopogo today, and I think it's fueling me on to maybe look into the other lake monsters for a future episode.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Taylor?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I mean, again, we've got our fair share of lake cryptids.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We have our fair share of episodes now, too.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is going to come up next time?
I think on our next episode, we'll be diving probably into the New Jersey Devil, is what we're kind of throwing the idea around.
That spooky little thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of good history there, and yeah, it's very spooky, very scary.
And you know, what's crazy about that is, even just looking up Ogopogo and stuff, when we really decided to delve into this, I grew up in the area where Ogopogo is, and I didn't realize how thick the history is.
Mm-hmm.
How far back it goes to the First Nations and everyone that was involved.
Mm-hmm. Now,
the New Jersey Devil, to me right now, as a Bigfoot conspiracist, like, the New Jersey Devil is, that silly little thing couldn't possibly exist. There's a couple reports. I watched maybe like a Monster Quest episode on it, but I'm going to start delving into that thing now, and I'm going to probably find so much. It's going to be so real to me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, that's you make a great case, because I'm sure there are other people around the world like, oh, Ogopogo, that silly little thing over there in their lake. And now I hope, if you listen to this episode and you heard all of our discussions, that you can kind of get to learn a little bit more about it, because I think that's the best thing about this age and these, whatever they are, is we can talk about them and we can share the information from the past and compare with the information of the present and just explore information leading us into the future.
Yes,
so
very unprofessional people like us.
Oh yeah, we're very,
make a podcast
very
about
professional, yeah.
But you know what? The important thing is, it's fun to chat about it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's fun to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
We hope you all had a good time, people. And I think we'll see you next time on Cryptid Clues. Taylor, do you want to lead us out?
Like I said at the beginning, the plugs, check us out on our website. And if you have any questions, want to reach out to us, just send us an email, CryptidClues@gmail.com. See you in the search bar.
Just take it from them.
We'll see you in the search bar.